Hello and welcome to Sim Strategy Gaming. This episode will be about the third scenario of the third downloadable content for Railway Empire 2, Colors of India. We find ourselves in West India in 1865. Looking at our mission objectives, we see that connecting the city of Ahmednagar to our home city of Bombay, that comes on right away. And then transport 140 wagons with a single train line connecting Bombay, Pune, and Ahmednagar. Comes on very nicely with the setup that we made. Then it's a little bit more of a focus on constructing a library in Pune. And then this mission objective has sort of a double set of objectives, and one Indian and one British. And the British, they want us to make 8 different goods available in Nagpur at the same time. That comes in a little later. But as soon as we get this connection bonuses rolling in and a little bit of money, we will be able to reach all the way up to Nagpur and build ourselves a nice Berar circle here that we sort of started with. As usual, we will start out with trains in all of the actual connection bonuses. So we'll have one here starting in Pune, and then the other, since it's important to grow Pune as fast as possible. We started here in Swami and may have it go up the hill here, kind of a sharp incline here. Had to build a bridge, playing as the engineer this time, because I thought it might be more inclines there, but it's kind of a high incline. But start out with bringing in the necessary goods to Pune. And one of those necessary goods that are quite available are the lumber. And then by starting a train here, it can go straight into Pune as once, and the other one starting at Pune goes in the opposite direction, so there will be one in each direction on this long line. And then there is one starting here in Naned, and one starting here at Akola, and they will go in each separate direction. And then, a bit more than a year later, we've been able to finish this Berar zone here, including all the cities of Bid, Nanded, Gadchiruri, Brahmanpuri, Nagpur, and Akola. And then all of these cities have really nice growth and fulfillment of demand of over 80%, and keep growing a lot. Filled it up with most that it is needed. See here that it got access to all of the goods. There are lumber here on the Berar zone. There are sugar. There are 2 sources of rice coming into warehouses here, and also at the Akola. There are wheat coming in, and we have some naan bread down here, and chickens, and lumber, and even some vegetables. And also not a winery, not yet, but that's not in so high demand. Also reached a new locomotive, so that we now have access to the class F, being a freight train. And then I would choose that because of this high incline here, and one can see that perhaps now that there will be a lot of blocking up here, because the fuller trains, they will be very slow up this high incline. So then the trains with a lower amount of wagons, they will have to wait for the fuller trains to go up the incline. One perhaps can see some of that tendency here now, at least. They're not really going very fast, but at least the class F, being a freight train, goes a little bit faster than the mixed trains. So I used now the freight trains for mixed transportation, both ways, even though they have a bit of a slower speed. they still have a higher attractive power, can have a lot of high attractive power. It's a little dumb because on this stretch here, this long line, this Maharashtra line here, also has very flat regions. So here, of course, it would be smarter to have the mixed line, the Brox Mogul, I think. But at least we're using that one for the Berar circle. You can also notice that I set up some of these special trains here. One here from Nagpur to directly from Nagpur to Ramundi, in order for it to have non-bread coming straight into it. We can now delete that now. Looking at our mission objectives, we see that we now have two choices. We can go to the Madhya Pradesh region right away, or the Mewar region. And looking at those, we see that the Madhya Pradesh, it's a little far away, these cities, and there are only 3 cities. It's cheaper option, but then here, if you go to Mewar, we might be able to have that, you use this concession zone to build a circle here, a Maharashtra circle that goes up here into Surat, and then we can further on expand upon that and build more of a Mewar circles. I think we're going to choose this one for now, and see what new mission objectives we then have. Connect the city of Kalyana to our home city. That should be kind of easy. A lot of this focusing on particular cities, growing the city of Ahmedabad into having 50,000 citizens, and then 200,000 citizens in the Mewar region. It should come on kind of okay if we just build as a zone, and then we can also have more specialized regions. There are the mountainous region here in our home territory of Maharashtra, and then they can rather have mixed lines here on Maharashtra line between the Maharashtra zone and Mewar. One thing to do now is that we got a certain amount of money, but we want to build these zones pretty quickly. So if you pay back this now we can't pay back that one. Not now, because I spent too much money on buying the concession first. But then if we let the game run for a little while, then we can get enough money to pay back that first loan and then get a bigger one. Having a look at the flow of goods in between, sugar here coming into Maharashtra line, and then rice. No problem here with rice. That might be due to me forgetting this. Setting this up back again. You can see here that I have rebuilt this line now, so that it has 4 lanes, 4 tracks, 2 lanes going back and forth. So to expand upon the transport capacity that was becoming kind of full. You can see there's a lot of red trains around here. But now that we got enough money, hopefully, we can pay back this, and then we can have a much bigger loan. And with that much bigger loan, we can expand upon this Mewar zone, and we can come back and see how that plays out later. And now, about a year later, a little bit more than 2 years of gameplay, we've been able to finish our second set of sets of mission objectives. no annexation without representation. So we have connected the city of Kalyania, and we have reached 50,000 citizens in Ahmedabad, and then also 20,000 citizens in the Mewar region. And we did this by first and foremost rebuilding our original Maharashtra territory into a proper circle. And this is a much more mountainous region, so that is sort of perfect for these freight trains. Having a lot of this, one can always go and check the elevation profile and see that it goes very much high up and then down again. And also that the speed is varying a lot on this. So that would be a good thing here to have the trains with the highest attractive power, using freight trains for mixed transportation. But here, between Ahmednagar and Bid, there will be used for an express line, and also using these mixed lines. We don't need all that attractive power. Here, the elevation profile is much more even terrain. It doesn't go up that high. It might look like it goes up very much up and down, but this is a little incline, and also a slow and smooth one. Had ourselves the Berar zone here, and built the Mewar zone up here. And then in between them, build this indoor line here from Akola, Indore, and up all the way to, used to have a hotel here at first at Kulankarni, but now it goes all the way to Vadodara. We have, in order to grow Ahmedabad, see what this city needs to become 50,000. It needs wine, for one thing. So we built a winery there. Might not be running all that well, so you have a little bit problem with rice. Where does it get its rice from? It gets it from here, so there should be, but there are too little. I should perhaps have bought up some of these industries. I do that if I got the money for it. The money is a little scarce in the beginning, and it's really important to put up these zones so that money are coming in steadily. You see how the trains are doing. They're becoming more and more colorful, as one can see. And then with the flow of goods, one can see that all of these goods are now pretty much contained in their own zones. There are lumber in all zones here. Some lumber being exported here from Bid. There are sugar coming into Ahmednagar, supplying the Maharashtra zone. There is sugar here at Mewar, and there are sugar here, lots of sugar in this plantation. It's really bumped itself up, so it has enough to export onto Akola and further on to Indore. Rice, also on all of the zones have their own rice. A lot of resources coming into Pune here. 2 sets of rice here, and one that can be exported to a warehouse here. And this seems actually might be a little bit of a problem. There should perhaps not be rice here, and there aren't, so that's okay, because otherwise these two rice resources, this rice resource that is already part of the Indore line, and then the rice and Berar, they will conflict otherwise. Wheat, there's enough wheat down here at Berar. There is lots and lots of wheat at Maharashtra, and wheat up here at Mewar. And then they all got their non-bread specialists, evenly placed on all of the zones, a little bit being exported into Indore. It's much easier now, and if you set up these zones, to see that all the zones got what they need. Then one doesn't need to really check every single city. We can just say, okay, this city, this zone, this has the meat, and then meat will distribute all over the cities that belong to that zone. Planks are much more important in India. Comes into play much earlier than usual. So it's important to have plank factories in all of the zones. And then we have enough vegetables here and here. And then there are no vegetables up here at Naval, but that is being imported through a warehouse at Vadodara. And wine, we have bought up some of these wineries, at least here at Ahmedabad, but making sure that there are wine in all of the zones, and pretty much mostly close to sugar. That's the most important resource. It requires twice as much sugar as it requires rice. Rice is pretty common. And then spices comes into play a little later. But now that we have access to the Sindh region, then we will have spices coming in much easier to Ahmedabad, and might not need this Vadodara warehouse. Otherwise, both of these zones have their own spices. And then tea in Berar, tea in Maharashtra, and tea being exported into Berar. And then for the rest of these resources, neatly placed here. And then many of these others, they are more specialized resources, and these factories aren't that up and running that much, so they can hardly supply their own cities as it is. Looking at our next set of mission objectives, this is going to be a small and quick little mission objective just to buy up this region here. But now we got money really flowing in. We're having some good quarters as of late. We're really nice and steady growth of income. So now we're just going to buy up this Sindh region, get access to the tea here, and transport that into Surat, I think. And now, only a couple of months later, 2.5 years into the game, we've been almost able to achieve our third set of mission objectives, Bombay Tea Party. Moving the tea here from the Sindh region. Bought that up just to be absolutely certain, and bumped it up quite a bit too. Because now what I did is to turn off tea on all of these others, so there are no tea coming in from the resources here in Maharashtra. Haven't even connected this tea resource yet, so that all of the tea is now being transported on this line here from the tea resource into Surat. Surat not really being part of the Maharashtra zone, but it's clear that this is part of the Maharashtra circle, and that everything, all the tea that goes into Surat will be transported and be distributed all over this line. And then also the Bombay demands a lot of tea, Pune and Mednagar demands tea, and this will be more than enough to fulfill that mission objective. Managed to build a small little zone here, starting out small with just one lane in each direction, two tracks, and setting up some warehouses here at Ahmedabad, but seeing that it has lumber of its own, sugar coming in, rice, it has wheat. Ahmedabad in between producing the naan bread, chicken, chicken actually have to be exported quite some while, but two chicken resources two meat resources in Mewar, and then planks here in the middle has to have vegetables transported first through Mewar and then further on into Sint. And then Ahmedabad got the wine, and then it has also spices now, and tea, of course, lots and lots of tea. The main trick here was to turn off all of the tea produced in the Maharashtra zone and only rely on tea import from Sint region, or else it would be Bombay would already be filled up. So then I have this line here, but it has turned on to 0 trains. But now that I reached my mission objectives, I just turn that on back again. And you can see now in a second that, oh, what about the tea? Well, lots and lots of tea coming in. And we can see that also lots and lots of money are coming in. So then, first of all, I built this into an 8-lane. Might seem entirely excessive, but these trains have a lot to do. 13 times 8 trains are still hardly keeping up with the transport demand, as the cities now, pretty much all of them in our home region, have either reached university size. Also a full 8-laner here in between Berar and Maharashtra. And then there are, I think, also increase this into full 8 lanes. So this region is coming on very well, and that will produce all the money that we need. It will become so much express goods that the money will just be pouring in. You can only have 4 tracks here, but that is much due to this being attached to this Mewar zone, so that there are only room for, as of now at least, only room for 8 platforms here at Vadodara North Station. So then I have still just kept this 4 here, but this is more or less of a new zone using this consolidation freight trains because of the high incline up into Manda Sur and down again. And now, about a year later, almost 4 years into the game, money are really starting to flow in, and we actually got too much. And hardly think of what to do with all that money. This is due to that it takes a little bit of time to grow these cities. First, we had to grow Ahmedabad into 50,000 citizens in our previous set of mission objectives, and then to reach 75,000 citizens in Bhopal. That takes quite a bit of time. So in the meantime, we had time to build up a lot of rails, turning most into the maximum amount, 4 or 8 full tracks. And but for the other mission objectives, they came in much easier, turning 2 businesses into grain businesses in the Bangladesh region. That was just simply buy them up right away. And then 200 wagons on a single train line connecting Guna, Bhopal and Jaipur. And also reaching 100,000 citizens in Bombay, that also just came in absolutely fine. But see here that what we did in Bangladesh, we made it into 2 different zones, one southern here. This was the reason for me not picking the Bangladesh region first, but rather focusing on Mewar to begin with, is that one sort of have to build a connection between Nagpur and Jalapur and Bhopal first, and this long line, long circular zone here would very few cities, only 3 cities for this very big zone. That is not so very profitable, but it's a bit more profitable up here in the north, Bhopal, Jaipur and Guna, and having 200 wagons being transported here, no problem. But at least to buy up 2 of these resources and turning them into grain, and then I simply turn them back again. Actually, I turned this one here from don't need 2 wool resources, 1 will more than suffice. And then I also had this one turned into grain. But then one can turn them back and forth. One can keep on switching production back and forth. So then as soon as silk came into demand, I rather have 1 silk and 1 grain rather than 2 grain resources. Also a tip here for growing Bhopal, to buy up the industry that is already here and to turn that into a weavery, because weaveries, they demand wool as well, and ordinary cities don't demand wool, so that's one more demandment that can easily be fulfilled. And we can see here now that I almost got 100% all over, and silk now is also coming in. So and we can see with the flow of goods that it has lumber easily accessible to it, sugar being transported here in from Berar, and it has wheat, grain of course, since we turned that into grain. Guna is producing naan bread, and we have meat in Jalapur, and then Indore here has now both plank factory, and then I also bought up silk brocade, because silk wasn't that far away, so I could pick up some silk here on the way, as it picks up both silk and lumber for both its factories. And then vegetables was a little bit further away, and then there wasn't coming in enough vegetables. I thought I built this little extra line here from this very big vegetable farm going straight up to Napur, filling up the warehouse explicitly, so that more will come in here. We can see that these trains, even though I have this kind of excessive setup with 8 lanes most of the time, and also added upon these extra lines in between, it can never be enough. As soon as the cities are more than 100,000 or something, they produce so many passengers per week, and also has so high demands. This one needing 63 wagons a week, here 60 wagons a week, and that is only the freight goods. And then of course with additional passengers and mail bags, that becomes a lot. And also the vegetables was a little bit problematic, so then I built a little extra line here from Akola through the vegetable resource and straight up into Bhopal, and then one can set up direct lines that goes into Bhopal and make sure that it has what it needs. Wine coming in from Mandsaur, and then also from Nagpur, so that pretty much took care of that. It has spices on its own, it has tea on its own, it has, if it produces, of course, this weavery, the cloth, and then have clothing together with the weaveries. That is always a good idea. And now that I got so much money, I can pretty much control the entire industry businesses as well. And there are furnitures from all around. Silk it has on its own, and silk brocade coming in from both Jaipur and Indore. And then not so much more were needed, because then we have reached 75,000 citizens. In addition to this, built this extra line here, full 8 lanes, with using mostly now we have reached this section. This is really excellent, the mixed train, and I prefer to use the mixed trains for all different purposes. Looking at and now as the mixed train is the best train, there is not so much point in having this express lines, because the best express line we have is this Holda, which is kind of an early train and not so fantastically good anymore. It's much it has 78 kilometers an hour, but only attractive power of 44. We compare that to the Saxon, which has only 1 kilometer less an hour, and then attractive power much better. So, and then I don't bother so much with these passenger only lines. They are mostly for in the cases where you have very good express trains compared to the others. Indoor, we made into this nice little crosses here. One for track, 2 lanes coming in from yes, here is actually one little extra sneaky one attaching itself onto, because there is this is a ceramics factory down here, and then there wasn't any more room at this station. This is one of the things that turned problematic, is they already filled up these 2 stations, and then this one was pretty full as well, but then one can use the same lines for different the same tracks for different lines, so then this one is just attached onto there. But from Indore, now that this Mewar region has been turned into a full 8, I needed to build an extra station here in between Madhuvara Central Station, which collects the lumber and also goes further on to Indore and then to Akola. So Indore now serving as a cross in between, and then one from Bhopal to Mansaur. And then not so much other things have been happening here. Expanded a little bit upon these resources around Rajkot, and then just pretty much laid more tracks. So also one here from Ahmednagar onto Surat to take away some of the increase the transport capacity a bit more, because these the tracks here around this Maharashtra zone, our main region, Bombay has now grown into a really big city, almost 150,000 citizens. Pune approaching on 200,000 citizens. Ahmednagar, wow, 233,000 citizens. This produces so much that it's hardly any way of taking all of the passengers, and we can see here with the flow of goods that not everybody, a little bit more than 2/4 are using the trains, and that means that there are quite a bit of people that are waiting for too long for a train to come and pick them up, and rather than just go back home or find an alternative way of transport. I had the opportunity to buy all of these industries here. Having a quick look at them. It's really nice to be able to control all of pretty much all of everything. This tea industry is really neat. It only needs it doubles the amount of tea as soon as you pack them in a little bit of paper. So that makes for a real nice way of fulfilling demand for cities that have grown quite a bit. Also important to have paper mills, bumping them up a lot, hardly enough paper. and then of course to have this entirely control all of the industries in Bangladesh, so that Bhopal will be growing as fast as possible. Very important to look at the fulfillment of demand in Bhopal and see that it has what it needs. Furnitures as well come in very handy, but not bumping it up too much in the cities that are supposed to grow, because if you bump them up too much, they might not have the demand entirely fulfilled, which is a bad thing. But the surrounding cities, they should of course have be bumped up, and then if I bump them up too much, often if one bumps them up to level 5, that is going to be hard for them to fulfill, to have maximum production. But to bump them up to at least at level 4, that is usually very profitable, and we can see that we are making quite a bit of money. We have 79% capacity utilization, and then we're making quite a bit of money now on production, but nothing compared to the mail and passengers and freight income. And now, after almost 5 years of gameplay, we've been able to achieve our second last set of mission objectives. Connect the city of Jodhpur to our home city of Bombay, and then grow the entire Rajputana region, and make 11 different goods available at Jodhpur at the same time. That took a little bit of time, but now we are ready for the last set of mission objectives, Royal Pain. We will come back to that later. First of all, we built this nice Rajputana zone here. Was a little big, so might look a bit confusing, but at least there are this circular zone around Jodhpur, Nagaur, Bahawalpur, Rami, Jaisalmer, and then in between here there are this cross section, going one from Nagaur to Jaisalmer, and one from Rahim Yarkhan until Bahawalpur. Some of these Indians' names are a little bit hard for me to pronounce, but I hope that I can be forgiven. And now we got so much money flowing in from all our circular zones that it's hard to imagine what to do with all of them. We can buy up all the industries that we like and build these cities, lay them out 8 lanes pretty much right away, not necessarily filling up all of the trains, so then we can see that these all have 0% waiting time, and we can have a lot more trains going around there, and then building them up just slowly, little by little. Here at Jodhpur, bought up the industry, of course, bought up everything before we even connected to them to get them extra cheap. And then I figured out that the same as with Bhopal, that had where we bought up a weavery. Here we could buy up meat industry to change these industries a little bit. I think there was meat industry here before, but now there is meat coming from Bahawalpur and then in Jodhpur, and then to have this extra line coming in straight directly into it to make sure that Jodhpur has another fulfillment of demand entirely fulfilled. One can see here now that it gets everything that it needs, and then also chickens as well in plenty full. Also made for this southern Rajputana Punta zone here that connects the Mawar zone and also the Sint zone here at the Kalyana, which have grown into becoming quite a big central hub, being part of these 3 zones, all filled with 8 lanes, makes for the cities to grow enormously and just keep on growing, still having 70% fulfillment of demand. But then in addition to that, made for some extra lines here from Bui up here to Jasmere in order to pick up and through Bramer, and one here at the westernmost part of the map going through Jasmere and Rahim Khan to make sure that all of these cities are properly connected. Can always good to go through and see that all of the cities here are connected passengers wise. Some cities not quite yet, because there are still parts of this region that we haven't been able to connect to, but now that we have access, we can simply just buy them up, and there are no need for any loans anymore. Someone has this sort of setup with all of these nice circular zones. There are money are flowing in so well that the challenge is pretty much only to grow the cities and to focus on industry, and we have bought up really a lot of industries, and are using our time to make sure that the cities have their demand fulfilled, like here. Having a look at flow goods now for Jodhpur in particular, see that there are lumber coming in. Didn't really take the chances on lumber just being redistributed through this warehouse, so then I built a special little line. Often a smart trick to build special little lines into a docking station or something, as long as you have this mission to grow the city. And then with sugar being immediately close to it, so that was no big problem. But also being exported into the southern Rai Puntana zone. And then with rice here as well, 2 rice resources, bumped them up pretty nice, so that should take care of things. And then there are wheat immediately close to it, lots of naan bread being produced into close cities, and then it produces its own meat and planks, a big plank factory both south of it and north of it. And then there were the vegetables. We could have made this into a hub here. This, of course, this contains hotel, and perhaps if I made for a warehouse here with vegetables, it might come in even smoother, but then no, I don't think so. There's a lot of excess train capacity around here, so then it's often better to just leave them with maintenance depots. Maintenance depots being a very important thing, making sure that you have maintenance evenly spread out, and then one can have more trains on the line. And then built for this winery next to it, so that it has wine coming in from the neighboring city, and also through a warehouse here in Kalanyan, through from Ahmedabad. But Ahmedabad, you can see that even though it has bumped up a lot, this industry, all the way on to level 5, it is still running low, and we are low on liquor in general, so it can hardly keep up with demand. It's better to have it directly from Nagpur. Then there are spices coming in, 2 set of stations for the spices. one here in the cross and one on the circle, should pretty much take care of the spice need for Jodhpur. And tea immediately next to it. And then there are lots of cloth coming in from both sides. There are only one wool resource here in the middle, but then if I bump that up to level 5, it can still serve both of these wool weaving mills, because the weaving mills cannot be bumped up further because the cities are so small as of yet. So one level 5 wool resource can take care of 2 level 3 weaveries. And then it's producing its own fashion clothing, which is also a good thing, because then the cloth comes into play earlier, before it can have access to cloth and have fulfillment of cloth earlier with a factory, instead of just waiting for it to grow until it reaches the appropriate size, where it has to become 60,000 citizens before 55,000 citizens, 60,000 citizens, I'm not quite sure, before it demands cloth. But now it demands cloth because of its fashion industry. And then there are lumber, furnitures coming in, silk, and there is no need for silk brocade yet. And then this region doesn't need these more advanced goods as of yet, because they are too small. So then there's no point in putting up extra warehouses around. Neither with all of this other more advanced goods either. So, but the setup wasn't quite too confusing. But anyways, a big circle here, built that one first, then a cross in the middle, and then a little extra southern circle here to connect these 3 zones, the Sindh, the Mewar, and the main Rajapuntana zone. And then these lines up here, these 2 lines extra coming up from Buyu. But other than that, have we done anything in particular since last? There really wasn't so much things to do. Yeah, I expanded upon this a little bit, made this a little bit longer. So it now goes all the way from Pune to Ahmednagar to all the way to Bid. Made that a little bit longer, because we can see that now all the trains are turning red, and then there is not so much to do. I could have built this even longer and made it all the way to Bombay, but the thing is that I'm using these freight trains here. We have now reached West train here. I'm using freight trains at least on this round because of the high inclines, but on this line there are not so high inclines, so that I rather use the mixed trains. The mixed trains are usually the best. And then also here from Bombay, a new line that goes all the way up to Vadurada, and then also picks up some extra lumber on its way. And then from Indore, not so much have happened, but I built upon an extra one here. The line here from Indore going up to Guna, to better connect as this zone now, the northern Bangladesh zone is growing very, very nicely. Bhopal now has reached the university size, almost 200,000, and Guna also growing very fine. And then also built upon this, it turned out that the demand was getting so big, and this resources here were bumped up so much. So just simply bringing them into a docking station here, that it wasn't enough. The wares were just left there because these trains, even though there were 8 lines, they couldn't pick up all of the goods. So then I had to make for an extra line here. And I'm impressive having this 16 track system here with a supply depot covering all of them. But now one extra here is going all the way to Naned, and then brings in more of those needed goods for the city. You can of course have perhaps built these two together as well, but well, one has to stop at some point, and then my money is flowing in more than well enough, and there's no point in growing these cities further and further, but rather focusing on the mission objectives as of now. But then there will be also a warehouse here at Nadir, so that both of these resources here, they go in each separate direction, one up to Brahma Puri and one down to Gadchiurli. Yeah, okay. But other than that, I think the map is pretty much, one just has to keep in mind the original structural setup with these zones, and then further on one can expand upon the zones and build extra stuff. But now for our next set of mission objectives, connect our home city of Bombay to Delhi. That is just moving up here and then into the Delhi zone and into Scan India, and up to Delhi, and just making sure that Delhi is being connected. But then the real royal pain would be to have a single train line connecting Bombay, Jaipur and Delhi, which takes us all across the map here from Bombay, and finding a way up here somehow. Not quite sure how I'm going to solve that, but through Jaipur and up to Delhi. And then simultaneously also, of course, building proper zones. One can see here that in Scan India there is a nice zone, and there will also be a nice Delhi zone up here as well. And then to all of these mission objectives, they have sets of mission objectives. They have this growing a particular city, and the next set will be to grow Delhi, and then also reach 200,000 citizens in the region that Delhi is part of, the Shahjahanabad region. And now, after almost 6 years of gameplay, we are finally ready to achieve our final set of mission objectives. All that remains is to construct a university in Delhi, and we have reached the required size for that. Built this nice circular zone here, referring that to the Delhi circle, with a little bit of extra resource lines coming straight into Delhi to ensure its growth. Have been growing quite well, 95% fulfillment of demand, even though it has reached 90,000 citizens. Now having more than $500 million credits in our bank accounts, we can pretty much just buy up everything. And that's just the fantasy that is setting limitations here. Also built a nice circle in Skindia with Aimer, Biawara, Guna, Karuli and Jaipur, and added upon a few extra resource lines. But then this royal pain, we made for a line here that goes west of the Delhi circle, And down on the west side of the Skindia circle, in between these zones that we build here, the Rajpunata zones that also are connected with an extra little line from Jodhpur down to past Ajmer and goes parallel for a little while down into Bivara, and then further on this Royal Pain line goes through Mansaur, and then just skips neatly over here, goes to the tea resource, and then straight down to Bombay. Took some time to figure out how to build that, but at least that took care of that perhaps most complex mission objective. So it's very hard to build these lines through all the existing infrastructure, and one wants to build these circular zones because they are the ones that really make sure that all the cities are getting everything that they need, that warehouse setup becomes easier. In addition to this, also built a line here into Delhi that goes through Guna and into Indore, connecting this Bangladesh zone to the Delhi circle here, and also one from Agra, also down into Bangladesh, but then all the way down to Jalapur, so it both connects to the northern and the southern Bangladesh zone. And then an extra one here as well, down into Karoli, like this. Goes in two different directions because there are wool on one side of the river and then vegetables on the other side. So then one needs to have both, and also connect onto it a rice resource down here. There are also some gems, but I never ever got to use them. That comes into to play so late, and this Delhi zone hasn't really reached proper size where it needs these jewelries. So it's a little sad. I would have liked to explore that resource as well, but then that just didn't happen. Beyond that, the map looks pretty much similar as it did a year ago. Haven't really built upon that much. Didn't really bother to, or most of these cities have the maximum amount of stations and tracks coming into it. So then, to sum it up, have a look at the flow of goods. This was a really large and in many ways very complicated map. So of course the flow of goods flow will be the more complicated. But then if one just if one would like to follow it, I would like to show how I set this up. At least here in the Delhi zone, there are lumber coming in, and lumber being also exported further on to some cities down here at Bangladesh, but Bangladesh also having lumber on its own. And then the Scan-India zone has lumber here in the middle that is being redistributed through a warehouse in Jaipur, but also is part of the actual zone here as well. So it sort of goes both ways. And looked at Jodhpur, here up in Rajpunta, has enough lumber, and lumber here in Sindh, and lumber in Mewar as well, and lumber in Maharashtra from several sides, and lumber here in Devar. And then also a lumber redistribution center here in Indore. Might looks to be a conflict, but this hairline is only it goes into the docking station, so then there are no cities at the end of it, and then that makes it so that all of the lumber are on this one line. Both of the lumber resources coming in here, all three of them actually, are on the same line, and some being exported also to Mandsaur. And then if you go back to Delhi for sugar, see that there are sugar on the actual Delhi line, which is being exported from Agra down into Bangladesh. And then there are also sugar going into Karauli, and also from Jaipur here in Scindia. You see here that not all of these warehouses have sugar here, and then there are not sugar here. And is there sugar here then? Yes. So that this sugar from Agra only goes down into the central station, while it is the sugar on the Scindia zone that goes on to this line here that goes further on down to Indore. And then there are sugar here at Raja Punta, Raipuntana, yes, Raipuntana zone, and there are sugar being imported from Mewar into Sindh through Ahmedabad, and there are sugar here at Ahmednagar. I used to have sugar coming in on both sides here, both in Surat as well, but that made for a mess. Sometimes if one has warehouses in both directions, that makes them to go back and forth. So then often I have these lines here. It's better to just choose one place for the warehouse. And then since Surat here is so close to this other sugar resource, it was perhaps better to have it here at Ahmednagar, and then it can also be a little bit transported down to Bid. And then the Berar zone has its own sugar, which is also being also being exported into the southern Padurashka zone. And then with rice here going straight into Delhi, and rice here also south of Agra, going down to Jaipur and Karauli. Same setup here, so that it doesn't interflict with the rice that is already on the Scindia zone. And this might seem to be a conflict, but then there are no sugar here, and on the Royal Plain line, and there are no sugar here either, and also only sugar coming in here. Rice coming in. Looking at rice, yes. So that there are rice here on the Delhi zone, and there are rice here that comes into this line that goes on to Indore, but then I think there will be no rice here on this super extra long line, because it's not so good to import have these very, very long hauls. And from Agra it goes down to Karauli and Jaipur, even though Bangladesh has rice, no rice now being imported through from Guna, because there will be rice here being imported from Nagpur, and of course more than enough rice here at Berar, and rice in our original Maharashtra zone. And then there are rice here at Sindh, and of course rice in Mewar. And then we need to import some rice from the northern Rashtra Punta zone down into the southern zone. Delhi has immediate access to wheat, and there are wheat on this line here that goes, in order for it not to conflict. There is no rice wheat here, but there are wheat being exported from the northern Bangladesh into the southern Bangladesh zone. So it goes down to Nagpur, even though Nagpur has rice coming from its own zone, the Bavar zone. And more than enough rice here down at Maharashtra. But then we can see that several of these cities don't get enough, because there just isn't enough train capacity. Even though we have all these trains, we now have 1,500 trains, but still they are all pretty much glowing red. And we can also see this from the ratio between lines and wagons in use, that there are more than around six wagons per train, and that means that they're pretty much always filled to the brim, and one can hardly have more than that. And then wheat is more or less evenly distributed all over the maps. There is no so much need for warehouse setups, and there's also so much of these four resources here, the four starting natural resources. The demand is so high for them, so that it's hard to have them transported all over. Now there is no non-bread factories up here in Delhi, not yet at least. I think there was some, and then I removed them in favor of some other industries, because I wanted to focus particularly on Delhi, making a little slower growth for these other cities, but still the Shahayanabada zone, it was still growing nicely, even so. The Delhi be growing particularly fine. There are several cities connected to it. But Delhi at least is getting its non-bread from no less than 3 places, particularly the Guna factory is producing more than is needed, so then they can go straight to Delhi. And sometimes I've set up these extra little lines to make sure that it goes just straight up. And then most of these zones now are containing their own non-bread factories. So then there is no particular point in having warehouses for that either. They just are placed as they are, not being part of these zones. They can take care of themselves. Delhi producing the chickens, the meat, because it has chickens just immediately to it. So that takes care of that zone. And now with so much money, I may make sure that all of the zones pretty much are containing their own meat production facilities. Some warehouses here. That isn't exactly necessary, but it can bring in some surplus from other sides. We can see that even though all the cities have access to meat, there are still too little meat on the map as of all. because demand is growing so high and there aren't that many chicken farms. And so that some of these cities are not getting everything that it needs. Ahmednagar trying its best to keep up with the supply here in Maharashtra, but it can hardly keep up. Same with there are down here 2 chicken plants, meat facilities, and still some of these cities have no fulfillment at all. But they are still growing very nicely. Planks, no planks up here at Delhi yet, but they're in the Delhi zone, but Delhi is still getting planks from 2 big plank factories, both at Bhilwara and then of course also from Indore, that is producing a lot of excess planks. Too much planks on the maps actually. There's a lot of lumber, so to turn that into planks is it's not so hard. Just buy the industry and then bump it up a bit, and then make sure that the industries are very close to the actual lumber resources so that they get what they need. But not so much need for warehouse setups with these more simple factories. Carrots, on the other hand, is a little bit more complicated. This carrot resource here south of the Delhi circle goes into Agra, transports into Delhi, and then further on also into serving the Scindia zone. And then there is one here south in Bangladesh, serving the Bangladesh zone, and also this cross that goes around in Indore and up to Mansaur. And then here enough in northern Rajapunanta there are vegetables here as well. Just there. Serving the Scindia and also going up to the western parts of Ramin, Rakan and Jaisalmer. And then there are lots of vegetables in Maharashtra, and vegetables here down in Berar, and that also some of it being exported down up to Bangladesh. Wine is also one winery in Delhi, so that takes care of it. It has access to rice immediately close to it, but also sugar. And there is a lot of excess transport capacity here at Delhi, so it hasn't grown that big yet, so that it's easy to have this sugar transported all the way. It can also be transported down into Jaipur. See if is there a conflict here? Might seem to be. Are there wine here? Yes, perhaps that should be turned off, because there are wine here and here, and so that should be turned off. That was a mistake. Now it just goes from Nagpur and then it goes on to the northern Bangladesh circle, and then wine now from Delhi flowing in only one direction. Yes, that seems to be better. Is there a problem here as well? Perhaps I should turn this one off, making certain. Yes. So always these long lines that have a tendency of making a problem. And then with the spices here at the Delhi, that can also be on this long line down to Indore, but otherwise just serving Delhi. And then there would be one here at Bangladesh, which serves the northern Bangladesh circle, but also goes on to this cross section here. There are line going to Akola, and there is one to Indore and one to Mansaur. And then there is here at Rajan Puntana in the north, and also going a little bit down to Buji, and in Amanadad, bumped that up to level 5, and then serves the southern Rajapunta and the Mewar, and also parts of Maharashtra. And then there is one here that goes all the way, takes care of the Maharashtra zone in general. But even as such, there is too little, so Ahmed Nagar is getting too little, even though it's immediately close to it. And yeah, sometimes this game becomes a little megalomaniac, and then you have too much money and too little ways of getting all of that demand. Tea, lots of tea on this map. One tea here that goes into Delhi, and also on this long line and serving both the Scindia and Bangladesh, both north and south, and also on to Mansaur through this extra long line that goes all the way into there. It's a little confusing setup, but then one sort of gets what I'm pointing at. And then there is a tea resource here in between the northern and southern Rajan Puntan zone. And then, of course, we had this tea in Sint. And so that takes care of this, both Mewar and some parts of Maharashtra. Maharashtra being primarily served from. See, this is sort of a little confusing setup, but then this this tea here only goes into this line, and then on that line there is also another tea resource on the same line, and that just makes for doubling up the tea on that line, and doesn't make for a conflict, since there are no tea here on this end of this line. Just goes up to pick up the sugar. And then more tea, some tea down here. And then we can see that this warehouse here is filling up too much. And but even so, there are enormous demands and supplies. They're still being picked up fast enough for there to be no warning triangle. And then, yeah, the tea resource here at the south of Guna that takes care of Bangladesh, and also some of these other, and Scindia as well. And then for cloth, there's two little cloth on the map, and I try to place them out as evenly as possible. Seem to have removed this one here, and we'd rather replace that with chicken resource and bump this up all the way, because now this is level 5, and then one level 5 weavery needs an entire level 5 wool resource, that it cannot be shared anymore. I'd rather have it in one place. And then there's here one in Bui. That also takes care of the Mewar zone. And in Pune, trying their best to supply Maharashtra, and also one here, two here actually, in the Darar zone. And then way too little fashion clothing, so no need for a warehouse setup in any kind here. Just takes care of the cities that are part of Sirhabit, Kalanya, trying his best, but it's being. And there's actually there is one. Yeah, one can do this. There is actually a warehouse set up here in Jodhpur that tries to bring out some of this extra, but then there's really no point in it, so I could rather just turn that off, since there now is already a fashion clothing factory here. So there's no need for having this extra long lines, rather trying to keep the supply routes as short as possible, being supplied by the factories that are in the actual zones, like this. And pretty much the same with furnitures. There are too little furnitures, too little of everything. Cities are growing too fast. Not so much up here in the new Delhi circle, and also here in Skindia, they really don't need it, but sometimes they're getting it anyways. So that just being part of this these zones that I have set up, and then the extra lines that go in between them. Here, this seems to be a little bit conflicting. One needs to take care of these warehouses as soon as one builds a new industry, but that is one of those easy things to forget, to turn this warehouse setup off as one builds a new industry, because now the zone, they got their own furniture factory, and then these furniture factories down here at Maharashtra, they have more than enough to do but trying to fill up their own cities. And then silk, barely enough silk on the map. And then a lot of them goes into this silk brocade factories. One can see here this silk trying to supply Maharashtra and some of these other close by cities, and also go into Indore, where there are a silk brocade factory, and then further on up on this these long lines. And then there is one here at south of Nagpur that takes care of Berar and Bangladesh, southern Bangladesh at least. But then there is also one here up in northern Bangladesh, which takes care of Bangladesh only. But even though can hardly keep up with enough supply. There are silk brocade factory in Jaipur, and then there are just too few trains. But Delhi at least, they're getting their silk, and yeah, I think that really much takes care of it. Silk brocade, way too little of that. So then there are just these factories and no particular warehouse setup, no need for that, since they can hardly take care of their own zones. Paper, same with paper. One warehouse set up here, Bhopal, that makes some of it go down to Nagpur. The Nagpur also being supplied by its own, two actually in its own region, but still, there just is a little bit too little. One here, Balmer. Wonder if that would be a problem. No, I don't think so, because they're both on the same line. This Bhuj and Jaisalmer, this is both connected on this extra line here, so they're part of the same line. Both goes into a warehouse here for paper, and over to a warehouse for paper here. So they are both supplying the southern Rajasthan zone. And then I haven't really got into the iron industry, and then there are no tools. And then clay, there is one little clay factory down here at Akola, which gets ceramics factory that gets clay from up north and coal from down south. And then there is also a couple of these granite resources. I haven't really made too much of a point of that. Trying to spread it out as much as possible, but then there isn't that much point in all of these warehouses. I just did that much more for fun, because there is so little, even with the 8 wagons per week, that is not enough to keep up even the closest cities, and that the game tries to fill up the closest cities first, and then if they are filled up, they try to fill up the next closest cities, but one can see that this clay doesn't reach very far. There is just too little being supplied. Then in the end, there's the packaged tea. Packaged tea is actually one of those neat resources. There's a lot of tea on the map, and as long as they can get a little bit of paper, they can paper that tea and make for great fulfillment of demand. But no particular need for warehouse setup here, so just trying to have one tea package factory in every zone that there is. At least in the older zones, the newer zones, they don't need packaged tea as of yet. Well, I guess that pretty much sums it all up. It has been a very big, long, and complicated mission. Building all of these structures, all these zones, and then also adding extra lines in between them to connect the zones, and sometimes to try to alleviate some of the pressure on these zones. There becomes a lot of traffic, sometimes long hauls around these circles, but to have a little bit of extra lines in between, like we have here at Berar. One line here from Akola to Braharumpundi, and one southern line as well. But I hope it at least was a bit explanatory. So now all that is left is to build a university down in Delhi, and then see how we did. And then we did actually quite well. The chief executive achieved all our optional tasks, and also well as the mandatory. And then for the high score list, we made it for the number 6, which I'm quite satisfied with. And then all that remains is to say goodbye. One can feel free to like and subscribe, and leave some comments if something was unclear, if one wants me to make another more detailed video about some of these warehouse setups that are a little bit complicated perhaps. And then I hope to see you next time around.